When we started this podcast almost 3 years ago, we never knew we'd expose a national epidemic. Podcast hosts trolling video rental stores looking to rent action films for viewing. This is To Catch a Buddy, the Action Film Chronicles. Going under a screen name almost too ridiculous for this skit, action film lover Mike from Buddy Shot 64, he asked Blockbuster, "Do you have Strike Commando 1 in stock?" Blockbuster responds with, "I don't think so." Action film Mike says, "Damn." Then he asks, "Do you take Bud Coin?" They respond with, "I'll have to check." He says, "Well, I'll be over regardless." So Mike's driving from Mason, Ohio. He's on one of these dark country roads. He gets lost in the video store and he makes one of these funny moves on the road to get here. And he finally arrives, strolling in like he owns the place, to the Buddy Shotz headquarters. Let's see what happens.
Matt? Mike, come in here! Matt? Mike, why don't you take a seat? Okay. Let's have a talk. I just wanted to test it, you know. What? So what are you doing here? Take a seat. I thought I was here to do a podcast. Yeah, okay. And you picked a couple of movies, right? Can you tell me what they were? Yeah, Strike Commando 1 and Strike Commando 2. Oh, that's interesting, because I remember on a recent podcast, you said that you don't like action movies. Do you remember saying that? Yeah, I mean, somebody got on my computer and somebody else was typing it and said that. Mike, we know it was you. We verified your identity. Go ahead, be honest. Yeah, I don't want my wife to find out about this. I think at some point everyone's going to find out. Let me just read a couple things. Some of your recent picks: Double Team, Double Impact, Steel Justice, Dead Heat, Police Story. Did you give Excessive Force a 9.95? I'm seeing a pattern here. Yeah. I have a question for you. Who are the police outside waiting for me? The podcast police are here because we need you to admit that you actually like action movies. Am I going to go to jail for this? Mike, who are you trying to fool? Me or yourself? Also, I need to show you some footage that we have of you. Why don't you take a look?
Now let me tell you, we got a hold of some of this footage from a Blockbuster, and it took some doing, but we cleared up who the culprit was. And lo and behold, you guessed it, it was our perp, Mike. Let's just say the footage speaks for itself. I'm so sorry, Thomas Ian, but no one can ever know, especially Matt, my co-host on the Buddy Shots podcast, that I secretly love action films. So I gotta blow all this bullshit up. I'm playing a bomb there. God, if you ever found out, I would be fucked. I'm gonna play another one over here. Okay, that's the last one. All 995 bombs have been planted. Okay, hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. And hopefully nobody's recording this. Our father art heaven!
Tee-wee.
Here we are. Strike Commando 1 and 2. Buddy Shots 129 from Severin.
the episode everyone has been waiting for.
Yeah, ever
their
since
entire
we started
lives.
this podcast,
Like, when are they going to do Strike
people come up
Commando
to me
1 and 2?
on the daily and say, Mike, I know you're the host of the most hot podcast ever.
Any of them hot.
And when are you going to do Strike Commando? And I'm like, well, we got to save. It's got to be like not an even number or an anniversary one. It's got to be 129.
You should put a very special episode of Body Shots.
A PSA. Yeah. Guys, this is a very special episode. God. So, I guess before we get any further into this, because, good lord, I got a lot to talk about. Guys, just like how these movies were made, I don't know, I have no segue into that. It makes no sense. But thanks for watching. And, give us your thoughts on this. I will go out on a limb here and say most people have never heard of these films. The only reason why I did is because we were at Horror Hound and I saw them sitting there and they were like, hey, if you buy these, we'll, do like a deal. Because it was like the last day of the thing, or maybe it was the first day, actually, I can't remember. But I was like, yeah, sure, because the best days to go usually at conventions are Fridays or Saturdays. Or no, Fridays or Sundays, because Sundays you can get the deals, and those are the most not as busy days, and Saturdays are, like, horrible. But anyway,
yeah, I remember that,
subscribe.
because I'd never heard of these. But I do, now that you've picked these, I remember when Severin released these, I saw people online, like, freaking out, like, whoa, Strike Commando, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this.
Maybe there's something to these films of action. So, I almost didn't even have to do this, but, I always put out the poll. This time I said, have you even heard of this fucking film before? And on YouTube, where I put the polls up, nobody had heard of either one. But randomly on Twitter, we got 33% of the people said yes, they had heard or seen. They didn't clarify which, so maybe they heard about it through us. Or maybe through Severin. Who knows? But, Strike Commando 1 and 2, starring two completely different actors, and the only thing they have in common, well, two things they have in common is they're both starring a character called Michael Ransom, and Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragasso are involved in both of them. So...
Bruno Mattei, director of Cruel Jaws.
Right, yeah, which we've done before on this podcast. Which I can't remember who picked that one. Was that me or you?
I think it was you.
I don't know. I like picking these, like, weird movies, too. Like, but anyway, I'm sure they don't do super great for the metrics, but let's talk about First Strike Commander here. So, or Commando. It's got right in front of me, and I fucking can't even speak. Like I said, it's action film directed by Bruno Mattei and starring Reb Brown, Christopher Connelly, and Alex Vitale. In the Vietnam War, an American soldier survives a botched mission with help from a group of locals who perceive him as a hero. He's sent back for a reconnaissance mission, only to find his helpers massacred by a brutal Russian soldier. So this has both, like, non-exploitation and, like, I guess USSR Russian exploitation.
Yeah, it's a straight up rip off of Rambo First Blood Part 2. It's the exact same story, basically. Just they did.
But it's so funny that
they did it anyway.
That was even a thing. It's like, what?
Yeah, this is huge, especially in Italian movies in the 70s and 80s. Just like straight up rip offs. Even Zombie, which is a great film, was kind of a rip off. They called it Zombie 2 and sold it as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
But that was very common in Italian movies at the time.
Especially, I think Bruno Mattei was huge.
Yeah, he was one of the masters of rip-offs.
I know. We'll go into like on the special features for this. There's like interviews with like in the first one, Claudio Fragasso, and he talks about how he wasn't a huge fan of this straight ripping. Like he's like, I like homages, but like Bruno Mattei just wanted to straight up rip scene for scene and dialogue for dialogue.
Shot for shot.
Yeah, and he was like,
he's like, we can't be doing that shit. And he was just like, I guess he just didn't understand why not. So, like, he said they didn't really butt heads, but it was like, for him, it was harder to work sometimes with Bruno because he would, like, be like, yeah, watch, Raiders and just write down all the best scenes and we'll just rip them off. And, like, the lady that wrote it was like, what? No, I'm not doing that shit. And he's like, I tried as much as I could to fight against it, but it would just sneak in there anyway. Sometimes. So, I knew this film was going to be hilarious because in the first, like, second of this film, it just starts. There's no, like, fanfare. It's just like one of our old, like, shot on Shitio films where it literally just started. There's no, like, titles, nothing. And they're cutting through this fence to, like, sneak in for this covert mission. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like they're doing this covert mission and, like, their commanders, and there's essentially, like, a whole, like, meeting going on in the fucking bushes behind them, watching them do it. And I'm like, why aren't those people helping too? But, so all these people are, like, they're sneaking in, and, like, essentially, like, the spotlight is hitting them every time, and they're never being seen, which I thought was hilarious. There was even a part where, like, I think it was, like, a fuck-up where, like, they're supposed to
think?
Well, they think they were supposed to be stopped, but they kept moving, and it was just, like, the guy's, like, moving it's like a prison floodlight, and essentially he's moving it, and where he's moving it, he's not looking, so he's just, like, looking up.
Like on the poster when that guy's shooting, like, down,
yeah.
He's looking at... Yeah, so we'll get into it,
knew.
But, like, this movie's pretty bad, and, like, everything about it is pretty poorly made. I actually like Strike Commando 2 much better than Strike Commando 1.
I hated Strike Commando 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought this one was the way better film.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I thought it was a way better film because it was entertaining and funny.
See, I thought it was boring, and I thought Strike Commando 2 was hilarious and awesome. Yeah. Wow, how could we be so different?
We'll get into it, though.
I did like the score to this movie. It was very 80s synthesizer.
Yeah.
That's always a good touch.
Yeah, they had a good score in this one. Did you catch it, like, in the first, like, 2 minutes, there was, like, some weird talk by the black dude about stealing watermelons? I thought that was kind of not necessary, but... he gets, like, killed instantly. Like, there's a part where, like, he's, like, winding this cord out, and, like... The guy has a gun to his back, and he, like, turns with a knife, and then it's just, like, he gets blown away. And I was just like, Jesus! There's a lot of looking at the camera, which I was like, oh, man, this is hilarious.
Very amateurish.
Yeah. Guy is seen in the dark. Then the guy that sees him is, like, Skyrim guard and just gives up. And he's like, must have been the wind. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, what the fuck?
Speaking of dark, I think it happens towards the middle of the movie, but there's a scene that's supposed to be day for night that they just straight up don't do processing on. So it's like a night scene that just happens in broad daylight. Where I was like, nice.
There's a part where a dude hits by an arrow, and then the other man just gets hit, like, punched and dies. There's a lot of that in this film. There's a lot of also, like... Austin Powers style, where, like, a bunch of shooting will happen and then, like, 10 guys will fall down.
Yeah, see, that's what kind of pissed me off, because I was expecting much more, like, ultra violence in this movie, and I mean, it's violent, there's a high body count, but, like, there's no blood, so it's like that generic,
it's kind of weird.
A bunch of squibs hit the dirt and everyone falls down. Yeah, and that happens so many times. I was like, dude, come on. I thought that was really pretty poor.
Yeah, I thought that stuff was a little hilarious.
I mean, it's funny, but it wasn't cool.
There's this dude when he's calling for, like, the alarm. He's blowing a whistle for, like, an hour.
Oh my god, that was crazy.
It was like, hey yo, Captain Jack, take me back to the railroad track. He's like,
That was out of control.
I was cracking the fuck up because I was like, how long is this going to go on for? And the guy's like, I was like, also, like, this isn't even out of the first little bit here, but, like, they blow up this, like, building and stuff, and like the explosions were like where they were set were going off like pretty close to the fucking stunt guys or actors, and I was like, And even in like the special, like the extras, like Claudio was like, yeah, there were many times when we thought that like the fucking guys were gonna die, and I was like, Jesus. Like after they would do these, like, yeah, the stunt guys would do whatever the hell we wanted. And, so
what did you think of Reb Brown as
I loved him.
Michael Ransom?
He was hilarious. He reminded me a lot of the dad from Troll 2.
I can see that.
Where he was like, there were parts where like he was great, and there were parts where I was like, dude, the delivery of this is just so hilarious.
He was good, but I actually like the dude in Strike Commando 2 better.
I thought the guy in 2 was maybe better, but it's like he was kind of boring. Like he wasn't as entertaining.
I disagree, but he was very much more amateurish and like not polished. He seemed just
the
like
guy in 2.
Yeah, he seemed just like your next door neighbor or something that they like put in a movie, like a random.
Yeah,
dude.
he wasn't like, from what I read, he wasn't really like an actor or whatever all that much. And like, even
I'm not really familiar with either of these guys.
Even the lady from the second one, she like was like Miss Universe or something.
Miss Sweden, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it shows.
I loved her, but
I hated her.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
She was annoying as fuck.
She was hilarious.
Once she showed up, I was like, fuck this movie.
Jesus.
But anyway, pretty stock Asian music for credit theme. I was like, okay. Dude wakes up. So this is like, he gets knocked out and he's like saved by like this, like these villagers, and like he wakes up and like screams and then falls out of the back of like a pagoda, and for some reason his foot is tied to a rope, like I guess just in case he like fell at the back. I was like, what the fuck?
Safety first.
Yeah. American chants. I was like, they're like, the great American, and I was like, is this like a fucking wrestling show after 9/11? Like, what the fuck? They're all like, America. So like, I guess they're like, you're gonna save us from these people. And he was like, what? And there's just some random old dude in the village that like, you have to kill this fucking random dude that like we captured. And then they like shoot him, but when they shoot him, there's no like gun effect. It just like he dies.
Yeah, that's every death in this movie.
And I was just like, oh boy. Dudes marching and like freaking corpses from Zombie pop out. I was like, what the fuck? Speaking of which, I think it was either this one or the second one. But when they were I think it was the second one. When they were making one of these at night, they were using the same cameras and a lot of the same people for Zombie, like 4 Flesh, whatever the hell it's called, like Death, whatever. And so it was just like, I think they were talking about that, how it was just like double duty for everything. So I'm
That's
sure when
interesting.
They were, yeah. So like. There's a part here where it's like, I guess he survives. So he survives, and the guy that like essentially like sent the order to fucking kill him or whatever is like, Ransom is still under my command. I could have him shot for desertion. I'm like, what? They fucking tried to kill him, and he's getting arrested?
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
One thing I did appreciate is I'm not sure where they filmed this, but it wasn't Southern California, which so many like cheap Vietnam movies try to pass off.
It was
California
both of them were filmed in the Philippines.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell, and I appreciated that because it felt like a real.
Which everybody was like, the people there were great, but it was like hell because it was
like 100%
humidity
jungle
all the
climate,
time. Yeah.
And everyone's super sweaty in these movies all the time, which
I guess works for the film. So Guy finds out that Ransom is on the warpath and says, that's bad. Then he says later, is he really that good? I'm like, what? There's a lot of like contradictory dialogue. So this is probably like, this is the part of the movie that made me like crack up the most. Well, not the most. There's a lot of parts in this film, but there's this random like father-son relationship that starts up out of nowhere. And the kid says, "Father told me about a wonderful place where Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck live." And Michael Ransom, Reb Brown says, "Disneyland. Father told me to see it all. It takes a month." And so I wrote down, now comes like the biggest overpromise and load of shit I've ever heard in a film. He says, "It sure can. They got popcorn and ice cream growing on trees. A kid can get all the ice cream and candy he wants. All secret wishes come true there. Anything you want can be granted to you by the genie from the magic lamp. I'm here to serve you, little master. Command that I will obey." And then he like laughs like a madman, and I was like, this is like the fucking weirdest but like funniest thing I've ever seen in a film. Because it's not like...
I think he knew that kid was dead meat, so he just straight up lying to him.
But it was hilarious, because it was like... Usually you see this in like straight up dub shit, and obviously this Reb Brown guy wasn't dubbed, so it was like... The dialogue was so hilarious.
It was, and the thing that I thought was the funniest was they kept talking about popcorn, and like that's not the first thing that makes Disneyland special. Like, that's like number 100.
Yeah, I've never heard of someone getting popcorn at Disneyland. That's why it was cracking up.
That's the number 1 attraction at Disneyland is popcorn.
Yeah.
You can't get it anywhere else. Like, huh?
And then he tells guys not to get lost in an open field, and they get gunned down like instantly. Reb says, "I need some explosives." The old guy says, "I stole this when I was in the French army in 1955. That's not all I stole. The captain's woman, too." And he goes, "Hot damn!" And I was like, Jesus! Did you see the part where, like, the kid shoots something down the throat of a dude with a slingshot or something? Or hit him in the head? There's a part where, like, they're trying to kill the kid and he shoots him with a slingshot. He's like, "Oh!" And I was like, what the fuck?
1 in a million shot.
Yeah. Also, all the bad guys and, like, good guys that are, like, I guess, like, Filipinish or Asian or whatever in this film are wearing these generic, like rice hats or whatever. And I'm like, they all get all those to fucking Party City or something. So the Russian dude sends this old man to hell. He like fucking chokes him with like fucking one hand and like kills the shit out of him.
Life is hard in the world of Strike Commando.
It's true. I did like how they were just killing people off left and right.
The body count is high, like I said. I just the action was terrible until the end. The ending is worth watching this whole, struggling through this whole movie to get to, because I really enjoyed that. But
dude shooting Ransom with mortars and completely missing for miles. He's like fucking running.
He's got him dead to rights.
They're completely missing him. It's like, huh? And it's like towards the end, he's like smiling as he runs in slow mo, and I'm sure they were just like one take.
Yeah, I think they thought that was going to look cooler than it turned out, because it looked pretty lame.
Well, it looked lame only because the dudes were missing so much. It was like, what? This makes no sense.
That wasn't a real war. Like, dude, take 2, make it better. It sucked. Because this is an Italian movie, we get to see a king cobra get kicked in the face.
Yeah.
So I didn't appreciate that. Like, you get to see the magnificent animal, and they just like kick it right in the face. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
That makes me sick.
That was just kind of a thing they do in all those movies, sadly, back then. They would fucking do horrible shit with animals. It was like, okay. I wasn't a huge fan of that.
And then they show, like, a whole cockfight, which is, like, cool.
Yeah.
I had to look away. Like, I'm not going to watch this, but...
Well, like, at the end, like, I wasn't really sure what was going on, and then I thought it was going to be, like, just some cage fighting or something, and then, like, randomly they started doing that, and I was like, ugh. Okay.
Yeah. It makes me sick.
So, guy, you got the wrong man 5 seconds later. What's this about? I was like, what the fuck? He's got 5 days to get the job done. I put, it's a trap. Get down. Dudes in the boat with him, like, instantly get reamed. So, this is the other part of this conversation with the kid that cracked me the fuck up. So, he finds the kid, like, barely alive. He's, like, dying. Everybody else is, like, fucking killed. And the kid says, "Tell me about Disneyland." And Ransom is like ugly crying. "They got tons of popcorn there."
Again with the popcorn.
And all you gotta do is go climb the tree to eat it. And there's cotton candy, mountains of it, and chocolate milk.
Yeah, wouldn't it be better if you didn't have to climb a tree? Like, that sounds hard.
And there's a genie, a magic genie, and it can't wait to grant you wishes. So, like, if there's a magic genie, why the fuck are you, like, going after all this other shit? Just go straight for the genie and get a bunch of wishes.
I think Reb Brown is too good of an actor for this movie. Because, like, he can actually deliver this dialogue, and it's not, like, the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Unlike Cruel Jaws. Remember the lead dude in that? Like,
Yeah.
I think maybe that's
Was that
what
the guy
missing.
that was, like, a Hogan impersonator?
No, the kid.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
He was one of the worst actors I've ever seen. And if you combine that with, like, this crazy dialogue, it's magical.
I mean, Reb Brown's actually been in big movies.
Yeah.
He's been in a bunch of really big movies and stuff. He was in a movie with Gene Hackman and a bunch of other shit. But, like, yeah, the guy from the second one really hasn't done anything else, and I think it kind of shows, because, like you said, it's like... Yeah.
It reminds me of, like, Tim Allen's brother or something.
Right? So he stands up, which turns into anger, and he screams, and, like, it turns into, like, an echo when you lose in Street Fighter, and he's like, "Dakota!"
This is where this movie becomes awesome. This ending. Everyone should see this ending.
Yes.
Because that's, well...
So he fucking... So he, like, holds a guy up, and he's like, "Take me to Dakota." And he's just like, okay, he's over there. And he's, like, looking through these binoculars for so fucking long, the guy could have just ran away. But then he, like, goes to attack him, and he, like, fucking hits him with, like, a butt of a gun instead. And then he fires, because he's like, he's not there. And he's like, fuck it, I'll fire into this village anyway. And he starts firing into the village. And when as soon as he stops firing, a bunch of random guys come out of nowhere to surround him. I was like, yep.
This was such a rip-off of Rambo 2, because that was, like, the big thing.
Where he gets, like, captured or something.
Well, how he's firing the big gun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. So many films have done that, for sure. So there's a torture montage, shocked with batteries. And then there's, like, a weird scene, like, straight out of pro wrestling, where a bunch of dudes with canes are, like, beating a guy, and he's, like, trying to walk away.
It's running the gauntlet.
I was like, huh? And then he's getting hit with a flamethrower, trying to keep his neck from getting impaled, which isn't really a torture. It's like a way to slowly kill somebody, I guess. So, pulling a cart while getting caned. He says, "Shit!"
That was funny.
Then tied up, made to watch his water is wasted, and then, like, this Russian lady seems to like him, and then there's more electrocution. And then this dude that kind of looks like the guy that played Shaggy from Scooby-Doo in the live-action films, the fucking other POW, like, dies.
Matthew Lillard?
Yeah, and he fucking rots like a motherfucker. He's like the corpse of Martin is, like, dead in here, and he, like, starts crying and almost puking. I was like, Jesus, dude, this is fucked up.
That was gross.
Yeah. So then he, like, for some reason decides to, like, take the Russian lady with him, I guess maybe for a hostage, but she gets fucking reamed at one point anyway, so... there's huge cave explosions. Dudes jump out of the grass, and this is actually... I don't know if this was supposed to be... I know it was probably supposed to be in the film, but it was, like, too... Like you said, I think this, like, he's too good of an actor for these films, because... The guy jumps out and he says, "Jesus, you scared the shit out of me." And he kills him, and I'm like, I actually believe that he was scared. I was like, what? Then he ties the lady up and says, "Relax. The worst that can happen is you get shot by your own men." I'm like, huh?
Okay, I'll relax then.
Yeah, rubs the dude's face into the grass to kill him.
That's how it was done.
There's definitely a part in here that was, like, pre-Hobbit, where they, like Lord of the Rings, where, like, the hobbits hide under kind of a tree as the ring race go past.
Mm-hmm. You think Peter Jackson is a huge strike commando?
You never know. There's a lot of stock. There's definitely some stock footage used in this, which they talked about in the extras and stuff. There's a part where somebody says, "You're lying. You're making this up." I'm like, isn't that the same fucking thing? And then we find out that like the dude that like tried to like killed his whole crew and he lived was like working. He's working for like the KGB. He catches up to like infiltrates this boat that's running at full speed somehow. Like he's able to get onto a boat while it's going fast. And instead of like hiding the bodies, he like fucking blows it up. And of course we've been joking about this all week, but he jumps out of the boat. And you told me what he said, but at the time I couldn't make out what he said. But he jumps out of this boat at like 1 hour and 60 minutes and 58 seconds. And he's like, out of nowhere, he's just like, he blows his boat up. And as he's jumping off, he's like, "Our Father art in heaven."
It was just out of nowhere because he never did anything like that before or since. And it was very weird.
It was like
I had to rewind it.
Best thing I've ever seen. I was cracking up.
It was my third favorite part of this movie.
And then after that, there's like this random scene where like a dude shoots a rocket launcher at him, and it isn't even powerful enough to blow up a statue that's next to him. And it's like, it almost seems like there's scenes missing in this film, which wouldn't surprise me because a lot of these like Italian films we watched, like just in general over the years, have a lot of like stuff where they have to stitch together stuff.
It's poorly made.
Yeah. So, fight between Russian and Ransom.
This was the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Jakoda!
Ransom kicks him in the balls, and then he kicks Ransom in the balls. I was like, dude, what the fuck? The running headbutt was fucking
That was
hilarious.
my second favorite part of this movie. That was awesome. It was so stupid.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that was hilarious because it was like, I'd never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. So Ransom hits Jakoda so hard he goes off a waterfall and screams like something unintelligible. He's like Amerikansky or something.
Yeah, Amerikansky. That was great.
And then
it's that hilarious thing in action movies where like the action is happening in slow motion, but his dialogue is in real time.
Right,
so he has to extend it like Amerikansky.
Yeah, then there's like, it's so funny because there's like 10 endings to this film, because there's this part here where like it's a random cut to like Saigon and it says last days of the war, and like he walks through the city decked out and goes into the headquarters, and like he's shooting the place up, and like the guy that's his like colonel, like his Troutman or whatever, is like, nobody knows where like, you know, the guy is that screwed you over, and he's like, he's our enemy, $dirty gotta pay, huh? I was like, okay. And then it's like Manila today, another reunion, and then they like meet up again. So they met up, and then like 5 seconds later they meet up again, but in an airport. Like, I guess he had been debriefed, and I was like, but there's no like, you know, it says today.
It's pretty unnecessary.
Yeah. So then they go to, like you said, to
this is the same thing that happens in Rambo 2, but it's Martin Cove.
Oh,
so
nice.
Way better.
And they're at some cage fighting thing with chicken, like you said. There's this voiceover during like the stuff, and they're like talking about like, you know, we found him and stuff. And at this point, there's only 7 minutes left for like a complete third act of the film. I was like, okay. And then like, he keeps using these like toy grenades throughout the film that like smoke and then explode. They're like somehow timed grenades that are like timed for 2 minutes or something. So he goes into this hallway, and like the score kind of reminded me of Day of the Dead and the hallway, because it was that same like old, like when you're like in elementary school where like they're like cream colored brick walls or whatever. He's just blowing everybody away.
Yeah, this ending is just nonstop shooting.
And the bad guys can't hit shit or don't even shoot. They just pop out. It's like fucking straight up like shoot house. So then he finally like he's killed all these guys, and behind the door is like Radek, the guy that fucked him over, and the guy's only got like a pistol, and he's like an old man, and he thinks he's gonna open the door, and he's like, he says die, die, or whatever, and fucking grenades Radek 3 times, and then just like leaves the gun there, and it's like boom, boom, boom. So
I always appreciate that.
Yeah. So then,
that was the first best part of the movie.
Randomly, even though he fell to his death earlier in the film, Dakota shows up like Jaws, and he has like iron teeth, and they're having this fight, and he puts a fucking grenade in his mouth, and he like can't get it out, and he blows the fuck up, and after he dies, he says Amerikanski. So like,
that was the best moment
it's
of
like
this movie.
Star Wars, where the guy dies and blows up and fucking screams.
I could not believe when that happened. Like, why did they do that?
And he says, "These
I've never seen that before."
Yeah, these Russian dentists make some pretty good dentures. Hot damn!
Great line.
Yeah. So as he's
that was
walking,
outrageous.
yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. I was like, "What the fuck?" Any similarity between persons living or dead, especially dead. And then he laughs. It's purely accidental. Yeah, very accidental. Yeah, like 1 in a million, maybe.
That was interesting.
Yeah. So, I was gonna go over some of the special features.
Cool.
For the first one here. They had 2 special features really in the first one: War Machine interview with screenwriter Claudia Fragasso, and then All Quiet on the Philippine front interview with co-writer Wazella Drudy. So like, essentially, they kind of started off, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in here with my editor, and you know, we're editing my new film Karate Man, and we're working on Italian blood stories, and this is the first film he did in the Philippines." There was like some joking about how he's like, yeah, the Philippines had just hosted a year prior a mediocre director called Francis Ford Coppola who shot Apocalypse Now there. Like, he was like laughing or whatever.
Very clever.
Apparently, like, when they went up in a helicopter, because they had pretty much free reign because of like their connections with like military and stuff, and they were using actual helicopters and stuff. It went out of control due to turbulence. And, like, I guess Bruno was like, I'm gonna die in this fucking foreign country with you. This is fucking bullshit.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And then Roman Grips brought all the ingredients to make spaghetti amatriciano. And he's, like, in this constant hot place. And apparently that's, like, it's supposed to be, like, a spicy dish that's made with, like, chilies and shit.
Oh, God. Nothing better on a hot day than a piping hot bowl of pasta.
So he also talked about like other stuff, like he had dinner with the Filipino crew one time. They cooked this huge fried fish that was as big as a shark.
Whoa.
And they kept giving him alcohol, and he began to see things. Like a guy's nose grew like an elephant, and another's ears grew. And
but he dosed him.
And he was like, you know, what the fuck is this? This is not. And he's like, yeah, it's only a little, like, you know, just a little bit hallucinogenic or whatever. And he was like, they had to carry him back to his hotel like Christ, he said. Weapons
and the making of this movie is way more entertaining than the movie.
Weapons were real with blanks. One time this Jeep stopped to pick up 2 girls who were actually rebel fighters disguised as hookers, and they slit the soldiers' throats. He said they found out about that later, thankfully.
Whoa.
He's like, don't forget we were carrying a cache of weapons on the bus. I believe the rebels were actually looking to steal our load. The army updated us on what happened when we returned to the hotel. Never a dull moment over there, you know?
It sounds like it.
He says there was a scene, so like the scene in Strike Commando where Reb Brown blows up like a boat with some grenades that we talked about. The walkies like weren't working, like the walkie-talkies, and they had like a signal for like when to blow up the explosions, and it was to like take off their hats or whatever. And he's like, however, and I don't remember exactly why, me and Bruno started arguing and took off our hats without thinking, and the extra set like started jumping into the water and the cameras are unmanned, and shit started blowing up. And like just in the nick of time, one of the guys went over and started manning one of the cameras, so they only had like one thing of that. Nice. He says Reb Brown was a playful, fun-loving man who loved to eat and shoot action scenes. He was the only actor who got along with Bruno, who was willing to put Reb in a ton of action scenes after another. Working with Reb was awesome. You could ask him anything, and he'd always comply.
That's cool.
They talk about like the Colonel Raddick was pretty much straight-laced. He just kind of stayed to himself. Jakota, he said he was a muscle man who had a very sweet nature. And apparently he worked out. They just decided to put that in the film. Because he was constantly fucking working out on set, he said. He said this movie sold like fucking crazy. The sequel and Double Target didn't really come close to repeating the original success.
What's Double Target?
I guess it's another one that they did that I didn't know was. And then the All Quiet on the Philippine Front, they kind of talked, like the lady talked about.
Who was it, the writer?
Yes.
Huh.
She was like the screenwriter or whatever. Bruno and Claudio like collaborated with her on this. She's like, and by that, they had meetings for the two of them, would exchange ideas, and then she'd be the one to do the actual work and write things down.
Dude, Double Target is another Rambo ripoff, but
Yeah.
Donald Pleasance is in it.
Yeah, okay.
Senator Blaster.
Yeah, so I did actually look that up.
Dude.
I like how this guy's IMDb credit is literally just the fucking from Zombie. Bruno kept telling her to watch and rewatch First Blood Part 2, and she would get mad at him.
Clearly.
Because she wanted to write an original story, and he wanted her to lift straight scenes and dialogue from the film.
It's the exact same movie, dude.
Yeah. Let's see. The idea for the villain Steel Teeth was inspired, obviously, by Jaws. She said, this was like a weird part. She said, I don't like the country of the Philippines. Not that anyone would want to hear this. She has low blood pressure. She'd never want to be in a place so hot and damp. I was like, okay. So then the other thing is like the in production trailer where it literally just showed like, kind of like it was selling the film to people and stuff. And there's a weird narration. When they sent Mike Ransom into Vietnam to blow up a vital bridge, they didn't bargain on him getting out alive, but Mike Ransom is a highly skilled member of Strike Commando, and there's just two things on his mind: survival and revenge. Strike Commando coming soon. I was like, okay. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed because like in the first one, there's no interview or anything with Reb Brown. But there is with like Brent Huff in this one.
Nice.
So
yeah, I was hoping for it to be like worse than it was. Maybe I just thought it was super generic and pretty boring up until the end, where it got crazy. So I did appreciate that, but
my ammo fell apart. No.
Maybe my expectations were too high because I was kind of expecting a Cruel Jaws level craziness, and it's just more straight.
I thought there was a lot of goofy shit in this film.
There was some, especially that ending, but
yeah.
I thought Strike Commando 2 was way more insane. Should we get into Strike Commando 2?
So, a sequel, Strike Commando 2, was released in 1988 and stars Brent Huff as Sergeant Michael Ransom and Richard Harris as Major Vic Jenkins.
Dude, when I saw Richard Harris's name in the credits, I was like, what is happening? Like,
yeah, this was kind of like...
Dude, he must have been struggling in his career at this point.
I think it was, definitely one of those deals where it was like... He's
English Bob himself.
They were kind of talking about how a lot of these, like, American and, like, actors... Essentially, if, like, he was, like, they were saying that, like, if you're from, like, Italy, they kind of don't, they have like an issue with like doing this where like if an actor is like higher up on the card and they kind of fall down and stuff, they like don't want to go to a foreign country. They're like, whatever, the roles should come to me. But like at least that's what Claudio was saying. And then he was saying, but that's, they would get people like Donald Pleasance or like Richard Harris that would just be like, yeah, I don't care, to do whatever, you know, like.
It was cool. I always liked seeing him, and he was good in this movie. But I just couldn't believe like
that I was kind of shocked
he would
too.
be in a movie like Strike Commando.
But it was
too.
like it's kind of like Donald Pleasance, like he could have been in this film too, and I would have been like, okay, what the but like I guess he was talking about how like both him and Donald Pleasance are like there's other actors, but there's only a few actors he's ever worked with that like they just want to know like what is my character. And then, like, they just direct themselves, essentially. It's like they just go, and you don't have to tell them what to do. So in this one, an ex-Army major is kidnapped by terrorists in the Philippines, which is Major Vic Jenkins, demanding $10 million worth of diamonds. Michael, a Vietnam vet who served under him, goes on a solo mission determined to rescue him. So there's essentially, like, no real correlation between like 1 and 2 in this. It's kind of like they
just decide to rip off Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they decide to rip off Raiders of the Lost Ark, but have like the main guy be like like the same character from the first film. Just like Strike Commando 1, this movie just kind of starts.
Yeah, but I thought the opening shot was like cooler than anything in Strike Commando 1. Like this super slow motion shot of all the dudes getting blown up, and Richard Harris like saves his man. I thought that was really cool. Cool way to start a movie.
Yeah.
What, you don't think so?
I wasn't a huge fan of this film. I mean, I liked Richard Harris and stuff, but I thought that like the main lead was just too like straight-laced. Like there wasn't enough like joking around really going on, which I feel like the first one didn't take itself super serious, and this one kind of took itself way too serious in certain aspects, and I was like,
I didn't think so at all. I thought it was super goofy and weird. There's like the score is like circus music in this movie. It's like a clarinet.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I think it's mainly he's trying to act like this is super serious shit.
Oh yeah, he is like, I'm playing the ultimate badass.
Right, that's why I think I'm kind of like, I wasn't loving it.
But it was like poorly done and funny, I thought. Like,
yeah.
He just seemed like he had uncle energy or something. I don't know. It was weird. But Mary Staven, who plays Rosanna Boom, I thought she was amazing. Like, I've never seen a performance like this in a movie. It was so weird.
Yeah, I definitely haven't seen a performance like this.
You got to appreciate that.
I wasn't.
And she looked cool. Like, she had a badass look when she was like firing machine guns and stuff at the end.
Yeah,
I thought she looked really cool. I thought she was great. Like, she stole the movie from me. So weird.
Yeah,
she was. I don't know what accent that is.
Yeah, I think they were talking about that. How like
it was.
They weren't really sure exactly what kind of accent it was, even though I think she was from like Sweden or something.
Yeah, she's from Sweden. She was Miss World in 1977.
But it was definitely not like something that like they were like, yeah, we don't really know exactly what kind of accent it was. But
she also released a disco single.
Disco single.
Yeah, she was fun to watch for sure. So yeah, I like the opening shot. I thought Brent Huff was fine and different. But I thought this movie, like, the action was better, even though it's straight up ripping off Raiders of the Lost Ark, like shot for shot in some cases. I was like, come on, dude.
You can definitely tell that they had like more money for sure.
Yeah. And
they had, like,
it was a little bit more violent too, which
they had like a weird like Nazi kind of guy in this that was like the dude from Raiders except for like
straight up the dude from Raiders.
If they took him, but like he at the end of the movie he decides to be like the main villain in Fight.
Right.
Which I was like, what?
But this has one thing Raiders doesn't have. Ninjas. It was the
Which
80s.
Is so random.
I know. When I saw
what?
ninjas show up, I was like, hell yeah, dude, this is awesome.
Well, it was weird because they had like ninjas, but like they also had like they still had this shit with like the USSR or the Russians, and like they had this random like Confucius guy that was like a molester in the fucking thing. I was like, what is going on? So we start this movie off in like, I guess this is like years later or something. And Michael Ransom is like, you know, his random friend shows up and then like tells him that Jenkins died or something happened to him, and he says the war is over for me. It has been for some time. And then like you see his friend leave and like he gets killed on a fucking train, and he says, I did everything you told me to, and he gets garrote wired in front of a train full of people. I was like,
But he's like, Richard Harris didn't really die. Like, why did he tell him that? Only to tell him like he's not really dead. It's like, dude, what?
I was confused a lot in this because it was like I thought I fucking missed something, and so I rewound it, and then I was like, what?
Like, this movie's even less comprehensible than the first one. Like, I couldn't tell what was happening in the story, and I really didn't care.
So kicks down door. Oh, what a nice family you have here. And then he smashes a photo over the guy's face. Jenkins guy is held in protective custody. So, like, this Richard Harris guy is, like, he's in protective custody, and they try, like, going to save him or something. It's like...
It makes no sense at all, because he's really the villain. So, like,
this
is the most elaborate
from
plot
his
I've
own
ever
guys or something.
It makes no sense.
A guy looks down the crosshairs with, like, two of them go together to make one, and that's how it, like, focuses. And, like, then just, like, a random guy puts a pistol to his head. So I'm like, where did this fucking guy come from? Guy picks up and says something I can't understand and dies.
That happens a lot.
The guy from Raiders says they can't answer. They're dead, like the Nazi. Jenkins is taken against his will, and then he gets held, and then Ransom gets held up. And then Jenkins gets tied up and held prisoner by a group of men, and the leader's name is Juan To. They demand a ransom of $10 million in diamonds. I said, what the hell? $10 million in diamonds?
Dude, the diamond play in this movie is ridiculous.
What the fuck? Why? So Ransom holds up diamonds, and like the guys peek from a window. Did you like what the fuck was this when they were on a boat?
Yeah,
he's fucking holding up a fucking diamond, and a fucking dude peeks.
I had to rewind that. I was like, what the fuck? Was that a mistake?
Yeah.
What happened?
Dude's peeking in, and then they're like,
Bacon
they try to rob him. And so he just kills everybody. I was like, yeah.
He's a murderer.
Shooting gallery style, a bunch of random guys pop up. So then we just straight up copy the Marion scene from Indiana Jones drinking contest.
Yeah, when this happened,
even the burning down the fucking place.
It was exactly the same. I was like, this
Except
is what we're doing
like
here.
There's like a random guy that keeps belching, and you think he's going to throw up, but then he passes out. I was like... And she says, how disgusting! And I went, what?
Like, what do you think was going to happen?
What is this accent? It's all over the place throughout the film.
It is bizarre.
You know what she reminded me of the mom from Troll 2.
Yeah, exactly.
It was horrible.
Exactly.
You know what I feel when I look into those baby blue eyes of yours? Suspicion. What? The fuck are you talking about? And then, so this was when I was like, dude, this is not Michael Ransom, because he says, I can assure you, you are mistaken, madam. And I was like, this motherfucker is going for an Oscar, and no one cares.
He's shooting his shot.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. We're led to believe this is fucking how Mike Ransom talks, when in the first film it was like...
the great character of Michael Ransom.
Fucking jumps out of fucking boat, and he's like, our father art in heaven! And he's talking about popcorn and shit to a little kid, and in the sequel he's like quoting Shakespeare.
But here's the biggest difference, as I found in the trivia.
Oh, that's true.
In Strike Commando, Ransom was blonde, but in the sequel, he's a brunette. I was like, why would you write
dyed
this?
His hair.
And 3 of 5 found this interesting.
Nice.
What's wrong with these people?
3 of 5.
The German version of this movie was titled Heroin Force.
Oh, that actually does make sense, because there is like a drug. That's another thing. The guy's like whole thing is that he's running like a random drug operation from like the jungle or something, and randomly. So I never found this out why, but they randomly have this like leader, but I don't even know if he's in charge, called Juan To. That's like this like religious guy, maybe or maybe not. I don't really know. Like he's like just supposed to be like this like Asian dude that's like wise, I guess, but he's like a pervert. And like I was like, what is this guy like? They all follow him except for the guy that's in charge doesn't follow him. He's running his drug operation. It was fucking. There was like 10 movies going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So Marion here is like, she gets cornered by the guy with the glasses.
Don't you mean Rosanna Boom?
No, I don't.
Like, who wrote that?
Fucking dog shit. She says, "You're gonna rape me now, right?" And I go, "Oh, Jesus." He says, "I hate women. I have a bunch of gay friends too." And then he says, "I hate queers." And she says, "You're hurting me." Then he just like manhandles her, and then like randomly Ransom like swings in like Tarzan on like a 1-foot vine. And she's like, "Why the fuck didn't you save me earlier?" And like that's the scene. I was like, is this just like improv? Like
it's nonsensical, but
shit?
Like that's what I love about like that like Cruel Jaws and this. It's like it's so weird and different than anything else. It's not good, but it doesn't mean it's not entertaining.
I don't know. Some of it was entertaining, and some of it was just kind of like
head scratching.
It's just gonna fucking end, like. So, I think I already gave my opinion on this because I had a fucking note about not liking the Rosanna Boom character, but like, there's this fucking gross ass spider thing that shows up on Ransom's back that like Jenkins kills. Mm-hmm. What the fuck was that?
It was like I don't know what that was, but they didn't have to kill it.
I was fucking at first. I thought, man, is that like a real thing? And then I was like, yeah, it looks too real to not be real. But I was like, whatever that is, it looked fucking freaky.
Dude, you better not Google like Filipino insects.
They're out of
heart
control.
Attack. But once again, killing an innocent animal for no reason.
Major Jenkins backstabbed him. He's working with the KGB and the Nazi dude to have an international drug ring.
Richard Harris is really the bad guy? No way. Never would have guessed that.
And then for some reason, fucking, they've got like a ninja leader there as well.
That was great. Can you believe within 4 years, Richard Harris was in Strike Commando 2 and Unforgiven? Like, what a roller coaster.
Yeah, he definitely had a career resurgence with that, for sure. I'm sure he was probably like, man, I'm fucked. And then he was like, oh, cool. So then a truck with women shows up and it says buddy line.
Dude, I was
cracking up.
I want that. Why was it called the buddy liner?
It also makes no sense. I was like, the buddy liner, what does that mean? Like, I guess maybe like, I guess you could call like a bus a liner or something. Yeah. But like buddy liner. Like,
I understood the liner part, but not the buddy.
Well, I didn't really understand that at first because I'd never seen anything that said liner on it that wasn't like a trash bag, like a liner or something. But then I was like, okay, a liner but buddy, like what is?
Only buddies are allowed to ride on the buddy liner.
Yeah, I don't.
Or when you're on the buddy liner, everyone's your buddy.
Maybe like those women were buddies to the men that paid them fees to have sex.
I think they were.
They're like, they show up and they're like 9.95. So once again, it wouldn't be a non-exploitation movie without Ransom being fucking tortured again.
Here we go again.
Film. Except for in this scene, it's like the least competent thing shot in any of these films because there's this weird echoey thing going on for a little bit with the audio. So I was like, what the fuck? He's like, ah! And I was like, and he's like fucking hitting, he's like branding his ass and all this other weird shit.
Just a straight up technical mistake.
Yeah. So then we have fucking Juan To trying to get, rapey with this chick. He says, your relationship with physical pain has something sublime about it. No man would stand labor pains and birth the way you do. Well, I haven't had any children, so I wouldn't know. And virginity, another test you have to undergo. I'm like, dude, just because you don't have kids doesn't mean you're a fucking virgin. Like, what are you talking
I was
about?
like, what maniac wrote this dialogue? Like, this is insanity, dude.
Yeah, I feel like that's like something where I'm like, did Bruno Mattei write this and they just translated it into English? Like, or he wrote it in English? Because it makes no fucking sense. Like, yeah, I've never gotten anyone pregnant, so I'm a virgin. It's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, this Juan Lowe guy must be like a complete fucking virgin or something. Where are the diamonds? Instantly starts getting choked out and killed.
I was so sick of hearing about these diamonds every 5 seconds in this movie. I was like, oh my God.
Also, the diamonds they give them to, what's his face? What's the main guy's name? Fucking Michael Ransom.
Michael Ransom.
I don't know. I forgot. They give them to him to like give them to the guys so that like they'll give like Admiral or whatever Major Jenkins back. And it's like, okay, and he keeps fucking losing them. The lady stole him at one point. There's like all this other random bullshit that happens in this movie, and it's like the diamonds are more important than Vic Jenkins' fucking life at one point. And it's like there were plenty of times when they could have just taken Jenkins and left the diamonds and it wouldn't have mattered. But instead, fucking, it's like, shit, I gotta get the diamonds too. And I'm like, what? Maybe there's a scene that's missing where they're like, if you don't bring the diamonds back, we're gonna blow your fucking head off. So then we've got an out of control part here where like they make like a getaway in the buddy liner, I think, or in a truck or something, and like the fucking like main actors are actually flopping all over this fucking truck and like doing these stunts, and I was like, what the fuck? And like I was like, somebody could have been fucking killed. I mean, they were even talking about how people broke their fucking legs doing this shit.
I'm not surprised.
They blow through a fucking like bunch of bamboo like scaffolding, and that's like a bunch.
That was cool.
A couple people break their fucking legs on that shot.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, come on, this was fucking out of control.
I thought that was really cool, but this is basically the straight up truck chase from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They do the exact same thing, like shot for shot.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Only much slower. Did you see how slow they were going on this? They were like going 5 miles an hour.
When people roll off, it's like that's when it goes back down to. I gotta say, at least we're smart about it in that respect. Yeah. But, so this part, I was like, oh my god! So they make this huge getaway, and then she's like, the diamonds are back in the at the camp, and he starts flipping out, and like they're going back and forth and talking, and it's like fucking improv at the fucking. It's so shit, and I was like, man, this movie's a fucking joke. Like they could have just. It sucks because it just made that last scene like, what the fuck? Like, they escaped and then now they gotta go back. It's like, cool. It's funny because I wrote, this is just bad improv, and then in the fucking, like, special features, there's a part where the actor Brent Huff was like, yeah, they let us kind of do whatever the fuck we wanted for some of the scenes.
Yeah, you can tell them.
Yeah, it's totally fucking obvious. So they, they're like, shit, how are we going to get back? How are we going to get back? And it's like, well, you could have just taken a car. But then she's like, you wouldn't even let me explain, but, how am I going to... He's like, how am I going to fire a gun and fly the helicopter? And she's like, why didn't you let me explain? I'll you shoot and I'll take care of the rest. And it's like, so now she's like a helicopter pilot and she like flies him back. And,
what can't Rosanna Boone do?
He goes back to confront Vic and, like, doesn't kill him and says, like, we're even.
But I thought that was a cool scene because he's, like, firing out of the helicopter and stuff. And did you notice, like, during some of the explosions, some of the dead bodies, like, flinch? People are flinching, like, ah!
Yeah.
Like, whoa. That guy's not really dead.
I was like, holy, bullshit! I was like, oh, my God. So,
there are also good explosions in this movie.
Yeah. A Nazi guy chokes the shit out of the lady, and then, like, he's like, why don't you, fight me for real or something? And he's like, I can't wait to kick your ass or whatever. Like the Nazi guy says, like, cram it. And
this fight paled in comparison to the one at the end of the first movie.
Yeah, the endings for this was kind of shit as far as, I mean, it was really bad because it was like, they didn't really set up like a a henchman for him to fight, because this guy was like, can you imagine Indiana Jones fighting the fucking Nazi guy from Raiders? He would whoop his ass in like 3 seconds. But for some reason in this film, they make it like kind of an actual fight, but it's like if you turned your sprinkler on in your front lawn and you and your friend just started wrestling in the front lawn and were just sliding all over the place, because it was like, that's how it was. It was fucking a joke. So they're doing this shit.
It didn't even look like rain. It looked like someone was spraying them with a hose.
It's because there's a part where there's a fucking random sprinkler and it's shooting out of a rock and it's on screen. You can totally see it. And fucking, she goes, kill the fucking asshole. And then she says, let me kill the bastard. And he says, no. And I put nothing like the bad guy being the underdog in the fucking film.
You almost feel bad for him because you know he's just fucked.
Well, even if he wins the fight, she's going to blow his fucking head off. So it's like... And then he, like, snaps his neck. And the next frame, he, like, is slowly going for a gun. So, like, he breaks his neck. And then 5 seconds later, it's like, he's up. So then they shoot him, and he's shocked. And, frickin' Jenkins just kind of nopes out of the movie. He just doesn't appear ever again. Yeah. He doesn't go to jail. He isn't killed.
It was not satisfying at all.
And then, like, she lists off the stuff she's gonna buy, and, like, apparently now they're, like, in love and they're gonna have a fucking family together. And, like, essentially, I mean, after this film, I'm sure they were like, we're never making another one of these again. But, like, essentially Michael Ransom is now gonna be married to fucking, what's her name? Rosanna Boom. And the credits roll.
Remember last week when I talked about the chemistry between Tom Cruise and
Nicole Kidman?
Nicole Kidman. Yeah. This was the opposite of that. They had no chemistry.
This was like oil and water, and then you took a shit in it.
It was totally out of nowhere.
It was weird because throughout the film, when they were on screen together, there were parts where she would, like, say something like that, and he would be like, what? And then, like, at the end, he just accepts it. It's like he has no will anymore. He's been through Nam, and then he's been through 2 fucking, like, betrayals, and now he's just ready to say fuck it. So, Michael Ransom walks off into the fucking sunset with his booby prize. So, let's talk about the extras here. So, the first one is called Gorilla Zone Interview with co-directors. Another Claudio Fragasso one. Richard Harris brought 12 bottles of whiskey his family made. He said it was a bit like that scene with Karen Allen in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I'm like, yeah, shows in the film. They pretty much were like... But he kept giving Claudio shots while he was drinking straight out of the bottle.
Good Lord, man.
And so he would give him one shot and, like, finish the bottle off himself. And he got to a third bottle and insisted on giving him a bigger shot, and Claudio was already fucked up. He said he was completely fine and lucid when he left the hotel, like, Richard Harris was. He says, but I heard the poor guy probably died from cirrhosis.
Yeah, I think he was a pretty legendary partier back in the day.
Yeah. It's the same relationship he had with Donald Pleasance, a few of the others, giving them their motivation. They just direct themselves. He said Bruno believed that any flaws in a film could be fixed in editing. His thoughts were, no amount of editing could ever save a bad film, whereas a bad edit could never totally ruin a good film. That's what I thought. Bruno had the opposite opinion, but in the end he was very useful to me as he taught me the tricks of the trade when it came to editing. There's a lot of films we've watched. We haven't talked about on the podcast, and I'm sure eventually we'll probably watch and talk more about these films over the years and stuff, but we've watched a lot of Bruno Mattei films that it's definitely apparent that a lot of it was tried to be patched together in editing.
And failed.
Yeah. They had a good relationship with local crew. He says he wants to be honest here. In the first days, Bruno and I thought they were a bunch of idiots, but we came to discover that Filipinos are simply very disciplined people. I was like, what does that mean? Huh. More than
Way to stereotype.
Yeah, I was like, I thought they were fucking idiots, but they're disciplined. I was like, how does that make any sense? More than once, they thought one of the stuntmen had died. He says, Brent Huff was an adorable guy, such a sweetheart, not that much of a thespian, but quite physically fit.
I found his performance endearing. Like, it wasn't good, but he's doing the best he could.
It was okay. There were definitely times when, like, you could see he was like a deer in the fucking headlights.
Yeah.
Especially in scenes with Richard Harris, who was, like, acting circles around everybody in the film. He was like, Bruno would come over and start ripping scenes straight out of other movies, and they keep telling you, he said you can't do this shit. And he was like, dialogue included, because that's not how the creative process works. Personally speaking, though, around that time, I was considering myself doing action flicks. However, I told Bruno that we shouldn't copy and just take inspirations. He said that was hard for him to accept, as he was so used to it. He said he tried his best, but from time to time, he just did it anyway. Franco, the makeup guy, was quite a character. Every weekend, they received like a sort of allowance to cover assorted expenses. It was guaranteed every Saturday you would see him in the Manila casino. He gambled away his money every week. Professionally, he was top notch. They were shooting at night. Zombie 4 After Death. There's a typhoon coming. He said he'll never stop counting his blessings of his holy luck for something that happened one night. He returned to his hotel room after working on After Death to find that his air conditioning unit had crashed onto his bed. It was one of those huge old American units that would have flattened him. He said Lucio Fulci suffered like hell when he went to shoot Zombies 3. He wasn't in the best health, and it made it even more unbearable.
He had to take over for Lucio.
Yeah. The sequel didn't do quite as well, and they pondered why, and they came to the conclusion that they tried to make something too American with a budget that was too Italian. The first one had more soul and relationship between the bread and the boy. It was more Italian in that aspect. The sequel was more American-style action without the same kind of budget they had, unfortunately. So now we've got Michael Ransom Strikes Back, interview with actor Brent Huff. He says, I think in Strike Commander 2, I kill 187 people or something like that. I was like, okay. That was his first thing he said. After he did The Perils of Gwendolyn and The Land of the Yik Yak, he was able to do movies all over the world. He said they weren't the greatest films, but he had a good time and met some good people. He said he loved working with Bruno. He said Candace Daly, he was dating at the night. Dating was in the other movie, the zombie one or whatever. They did Cop Game together. He says, so it's confirmed he was given some leeway with the script. So he said even if they messed up a line, since the guy Bruno didn't speak English, he would just say, fantastic! That's perfect! He said humidity was high. He ate a lot of fish, fruit, and rice. Did all his own stunts, so... let's see. He talks up two great Italian stunt coordinators, Massimo and Taviano. Got along with the female lead. He said Mary stayed up all night and played blackjack, hardly ever sleeps to this day. He says Mary and Nick Wilcox are his and his wife's like friends, like IRL.
That's cool.
Some of their closest friends, and he's excited because the husband just got a boat. He says the best thing is to have a friend with a boat. It's better than having your own boat.
I agree.
I was like, what? The truck scene where they go through the scaffold, one of the dudes, or I think multiple, broke their legs.
Wow.
He said, like, they had this one stuntman that was, like, the best stuntman out of all of them, and he killed him, like, 6 or 7 times in the film, like, in different roles, and he was like, what the fuck? And Bruno's like, yeah, just nobody would care. He said he loved Richard Harris. Richard told him to cut his performance in half, because I guess he was, like, going completely nuts and stuff, and then, like, crying and all this stuff, and he's just like, yeah, cut that in half.
Good advice.
So there was a pool fight, like, that didn't make it into the movie. I guess he's like, yeah, get in here, and he's like, you know, they did all this big fight and stuff, and then it just didn't make it into the film. He said it was stagnant, and he got some bad parasite or something, and he was on fire and had a horrible fever, and then there was a he went to the hospital, and they were like, "Oh my god, this is horrible, fuck," and they put an IV in him and all this stuff. And there was a band in a bar next door that was just playing La Bamba over and over again. And he said, like, the doctor asked where his wife was, and he said he wasn't married. And he brought his 2 daughters in and was like, "Hey, they aren't married either." And he said it was a really weird situation. So that was pretty much, like, all he had to say about it. But it was just some weird goings on, I guess. Oh, man. But yeah. That was Strike Commando 1 and 2.
So let's give our ratings.
Yes. So I guess
Strike Commando 1.
Okay, so going back through and talking about these for sure has been fun. Oh man, excuse me. I'm already getting heartburn thinking about these films again. So I don't know, man. I think like if I had to rate like Strike Commando 1,
and you do right now.
Sucks is I didn't write down a rating for either one of these. I just watched them back to back and didn't even think about it.
It's your duty.
Probably like Strike Commando 1, I'll do like an 8.95.
Whoa! Nice. I'm gonna go 3.95 on Strike Commando. I think it's like skip to the ending and watch the final few scenes.
Yeah.
I thought the rest of it was pretty boring. What about that's probably our biggest difference ever.
Yeah.
What about Strike Commando 2?
I think I'll go with what you did.
3?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 6.95 Strike Commando 2.
I liked.
Like I'm gonna forget most about these movies, but
I like the ending of this film of Strike Commando 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, no, I didn't, because Strike Commando 1 ending was way better.
Oh yeah, much better.
But I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like, talking about it was fun. I'm just trying to think about like Strike Commando 2. Like, what I would definitely. I like the scene where they're like driving and stuff and they escape.
I liked it the first time I saw it, and Raiders lost it.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because they're just. I wish that there was. I like Richard Harris. He was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered Strike
That's pretty
Commando
much
1
it.
and 2.
Yeah.
Cool. Good choices.
Nice music.
Next
I was like,
picks?
do you have anything? What do you have to say for yourself?
So I realized we've never done a Nick Cage movie, and he's my favorite actor. So I wanted to pick one. And he's kind of like had a career resurgence the past few years, but he's like was a laughing stock, I think, for like 10 years, kind of. I
think that's kind of like what they've done that with a couple actors, but it's like there are certain actors I've always liked regardless. Like I've always liked him, I've always liked Keanu Reeves, and people were like, fuck, you can't act. I'm like, whatever, dude.
But I wanted to pick a movie from that period where like, hey, this is actually really good, and it's called Mom and Dad.
Okay.
And I also wanted to just another one of definitely our favorite actors, Bruce Willis.
Nice.
For Weird Watches, I wanted to pick something I've always wanted to watch, which was Moonlighting, the show that made him famous. So
interesting.
The theme is two of my favorite actors.
The theme. Okay.
Mom and Dad and Moonlighting.
Interesting. Never heard of. Well, I've heard of Moonlighting before. I know that's definitely what made him like,
You've never seen
launch. No.
I've always wanted to watch it, so now's the time.
It was something I thought that like somebody was gonna pick for like actual Bruce Willis week, but I just completely forgot about it too. I've also started doing the thing where I just pick 2 films instead of a weird watch for the show.
Well, Moonlighting's a show.
Right, but like I'm saying, I had been picking like movies, like a double feature, because
I like doing double features.
I used to do like, hey, let me pick a weird watch, but then it would just be a shitty sci-fi film that I sadly made us suffer through for like 100 years. I'm like, okay, this is bad. But anyway, yeah.
All right.
Who else is in that film with Nick Cage?
Selma Blair.
Okay.
They're the 2 leads.
Selma Blair, I like her a lot. She's in Hellboy.
Yeah, I like her a lot too. They're both really good in this.
Was
but
this,
I'll let
when
you.
does this come out?
From 2017.
Okay, so it's fairly recent.
This was his direct to DVD or direct to streaming or DVD period.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess that's pretty much it then. I guess, do you have anything else to say about this week's? It's coming up.
No?
Other than these actors, our favorites.
I think it's about time we walk off into the sunset.
Yeah,
we did it again.
I think so.
All right.
Let's go for it.
Bye.
See you guys later.
Any similarity between persons living or dead, especially dead, is purely accidental. Yeah, very accidental. Yeah, like 1 in a million. Maybe.
Who are you trying to fool? Me or yourself?
That was weird and creepy.
Because if he finds out, I'm fucked. I'm sorry, Thomas Ian Griffith, but... Let's try that again. I was thinking
I'm sorry, Thomas Ian
how
Griffith.
stupid I fucking was like. Matt can never find out that I love action movies. Secretly. Let me plant this bomb.
That was great.
And hopefully nobody's recording this. What the fuck? I don't know.